All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the fantasy breakdown. Coming at you this week with only 5 players that I think you should add for the waiver wire for this week. Let's go ahead and get right into it. The first player that we have is JJ McCarthy. I thought he was pretty impressive in his week 9 return against Lion and him dropping 19 fantasy points. And I think he is worth looking at coming up for this week and next week because he does have decent matchups against the Ravens and the Bears. And if you are in a deeper league or a larger league size or are in desperate need of a quarterback, McCarthy is someone that I would look at possibly picking up. So far on this season, he has 14.7 fantasy points a game, 44 fantasy points total, 4 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Next up on our list, we have Trey Benson. He is eligible to be activated off of IR this week. However, I don't think that happens. I think they give him another week on the IR. I was looking at a couple of reports, and he did not practice. He has not practiced so far this week. But the Cardinals do have a tough matchup against a pretty strong Seahawks defense. So that could be a reason why the Cardinals are not activating him off of IR yet. But if he does return this week, I think he should be a priority for you guys to pick up off of waivers. Because before he got injured, he was showing signs of being the true running back 1 up there in Arizona. However, I think we might be waiting another week for him to come back fully. So far on the season, Trey Benson does have 8.8 fantasy points a game, 35.4 fantasy points, and 0 touchdowns. Next up on our list, we have Alec Pierce. Now, with Alec Pierce, there are only 3 receivers with more receiving yards than Pierce since week 6. And those receivers are Jamar Chase, George Pickens, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And for Alec Pierce, I think it is a bit tougher for him to keep pace with those 3 guys. However, I think he is a pretty solid flex option this week against the Falcons, and I felt he has always been a pretty solid flex option just overall with how well he does, how well he plays. He's sneaky good when it comes to fantasy, definitely like a younger Danny Amendola, it feels like, in terms of fantasy. So far on the season, Alec Pierce has 10.6 fantasy points a game with 74.1 fantasy points and 0 touchdowns. Next up, we have Trey Tucker. And I have Trey Tucker on here because Jacoby Myers was just shipped off to the Jags. So, with that happening, Trey Tucker becomes the on-paper wide receiver 1. However, we all know that the person that's going to be getting the most looks out there is going to be Brock Bowers when it comes to the passing game. But I think Trey Tucker could still see some pretty solid looks this week against the Broncos defense, especially with them possibly game planning to double team Brock Bowers and Patrick Surtain is out again this week. So maybe we could see that 1-2 punch of Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers both getting the fantasy points that they do end up getting. And so far this season, Trey Tucker has 12.7 fantasy points a game on average with 106 fantasy points total and 4 touchdowns. Quite a bit of those coming earlier in the season, and I think he might have had 3 of them when he dropped 40 points in week 2. But we can maybe see another touchdown or 2 coming from Trey Tucker this week. Next up on our list, we have Colston Loveland. Now, Colston Loveland I have on here because I've noticed that in quite a bit of leagues that I'm in especially, he is still out there on waivers, and he's someone that I would look at picking up because he did have a regular game last week against the Bengals. And he did lead the Bears with 118 total yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's looking like the Bears are starting to figure out, like, oh crap, we drafted this guy 10th overall. Let's go ahead and utilize him like we drafted him 10th overall. And I think we could see another full workload this week against the Giants with Cole Kmet being on concussion protocol. And so far on the season, Loveland does have 7.5 points a game on average, with 52.4 total fantasy points and 2 touchdowns. Now, this year, he is going to be the last player that we have for you guys this week from coming in from the last, and what we have been looking at to just see for this week. And I do apologize for the video coming out only a few hours before the game Thursday. Just been super busy with my personal life, but I'm hoping next week, hopefully, that we can definitely get you a longer video out showcasing more than just 5 to 7 players. It definitely be on the lookout for that. This has been the fantasy breakdown, and if any of these players do end up helping you guys win, or you guys do end up picking them up, please let me know down below. I hope you have a really great week this week in fantasy, and you guys win your matchups. Have a good one, and I will catch you next week.